Not a problem.
Well, good afternoon or good evening if you're in the beautiful USA or in Canada. If you are overseas, it's late at night, or if you're in the Pacific Rim, it's already Wonderful Wednesday. I am Bruce, aka Mr. Simpler, Faster, Better, or as a lot of people here on LinkedIn know me as the guy in the blue shirt. And I've just been chit-chatting offline with Chantal over there in Canada, Toronto to be exact. So why don't you say hello from the beautiful city over there, and we'll get going on our live conversation about love, life, and leadership, right?
Yes, I'm excited. Hi, Bruce from Toronto, Canada. I was going to say maybe I should say it in French as well. Bonjour.
Why not? Yeah, bonjour. Why not?
Bonjour de Toronto, Canada.
Great. All right. That's it. That's my entire French vocabulary. We're done.
I'll teach you another word before the end of our broadcast.
Okay. As long as it's a clean word, we'll be all right. Or you can teach me the other ones offline. How about that?
Deal.
Deal. All right. So, yes, we met. So it's an interesting point about, when you love what you do, it's amazing how life and leadership connects us together. And we're a great example of that, right? We started to cross-connect and cross-engage on each other's content. And I saw the value that you were bringing, and you were also in the mode of doing many different things. So I was impressed with how you divided your leadership skills between the many things that you do. So maybe talk a little bit about, some of the lessons learned, or maybe a couple of fast tips around, how have you been able to segment your time, but still be able to lead in multiple lives that you have. So perhaps we could chit chat about that.
That's a good question. And it's not an easy one to answer, because there's some days that it's one answer, and there's some other days you're like, oh my God. The one thing that I've come to understand through the years being a hustler, and like I left the house really young, always like having to watch my own back, as we were just discussing quickly,
right.
Your own personal story, is you can't do everything alone. And right. One of the biggest lessons, or the biggest tips that I've learned, is to learn to ask for help. That has been my biggest lesson. And to say that I say it and I still struggle doing it sometimes, but learning to ask for help and delegate is key, especially when you're in multi different platforms. I'm like navigating 2 jobs at the same time. So I would say that would be my number 1. And then 2 is really learning to segment time, prioritizing time, and really assigning certain times for certain things, being very dedicated to that. So at the end of the day, it's a discipline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
That when I started allotting some block of times for certain things or certain responsibilities to do, it changed. That made a huge difference as well.
Right. Well, I want to say hi to Kenny Dunner. He's a loyal live supporter. Hi, Kenneth. Good to have you. And I know you're going to learn. I know you're going to learn some awesome stuff from Chantal. I already have in the 20 minutes of talking with her live. Some of it offline. She's an amazing leader, I can tell. But I have a practical tip. So my practical, because I'm kind of a guy, typical try and fix things and do things kind of guy. So my practical tip, which also helps with the time management and the segmentation, and some people might think it's over the top, but what I do is I have separate computers. So that might seem a little extravagant. So my fast tip is, if you are co-blending 2 different businesses or 2 different genres, I find it so much easier. Like this one is on one computer, and my 2 other big activities are on 2 separate computers. And then more recently, as recent as last night, I networked to a guy here in Tempe, Arizona recently, Ken Chan, and I just bought a refurbished iPad for my TikTok stuff because, well, number one, I couldn't see the fine print on my phone. It was way too small. And that's just another way for me. So last night I set up my TikTok channel exclusively on my new refurbished iPad. So that's another way that I'm going to be able to not only segment, but it also helps keep me organized. So if I know I'm going to be doing X, I know I need to be on that computer. If I know I'm going to be doing something else, I need to be on the other computer. So
that's a great idea. I love that. And it doesn't leave room for distractions if you're like multitasking on one. I like that idea. You know, there's another thing that I've recently incorporated as a quick tip that I learned from a woman that was a business coach that I was like, oh, this is great. And it's the most simplest thing. She said, practice doing your list of 2 things to do, but the night prior before going to bed. And that was a game changer, because it's true that sometimes you start your day, you're like, okay, what do I need to do? And it's easy to just get overwhelmed, or things get in the way, or feel that you're doing too much.
Right.
And you don't accomplish it. So you hate yourself. You're just like, because we're so.
Right. Well, it's so interesting. I told you we get to some common ground. So I was having a conversation actually earlier this week, and there's a kind of saying in the process improvement world that, you know, you really got to focus on the vital few things and do those really, really well, and not worry so much about the useful many. So a lot of people get confused when there are so many opportunities or so many activities in their life that they tend to get sucked into the useful many things, and they overlook focusing on the vital few. So that's kind of the thinking process. What I find super helpful, because I like to be a writer downer, is I have this my week thing.
Yeah.
You can see, oh, on this side, there we go. There's a key list. So this is my list for my vital few things that I need to accomplish in the week. So as you can see, I've not filled it out properly for this week yet.
We all slip. We all slip.
Well, I had to make some readjustments in my timing this week. So, but at least it's on my left-hand side. And so that's the other thing that I find about, you know, leading your life or leading with love, is I find that if I pick up my to-do stuff from my left side, work on it in the center, and then set it off to the right side, that there's something about that motion that just helps me. And I know I'm really quirky and, you know, been around the block a few times, but for me, that's what helps. So I always have my to-do stuff on the left side. I work in the center because I work standing up most of the time. And then I put the output down on the right-hand side. So it's like a Subway sandwich line, right? They all start with the bread, and then they put the main stuff in the middle, and then they ask you for the trimmings. So, you know, the bread is, go ahead.
No, that's super interesting, because I'm trying to think what I do in my way, because I have a setup as well. And you're right. Most of the notes that I take and my stuff I play around with is on to the right, and the left is usually the stuff that I put away. Or so that's an interesting
right. Yeah, so if you the Subway line, or if you don't like Subway, there's lots of other whatever. But if you watch what they do, they're all set up to do what is called a single piece flow line. So, and it's set up to ideally allow you to only touch things once. So you should pick them up, work on them, and put them away. Now, it could be that they have to recycle and come back into the inbox again, but that's okay. Because again, you know, vital few things then become useful many things, and sometimes useful many things suddenly become vital few. So you got to be able to move stuff around. In a long explanation, work in a circle, you know, work on it and send it on its way, right?
I have to say, I'm loving Kenneth's comment. Tonight's quick tips are scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly tasty good. I mean, come on, that's like, I need him to help me write my book.
He's awesome at writing verbal quickies like that. He's amazing.
I love it. Verbal quickies, that's awesome.
All right, Kenneth, you need to reach out to, don't be shy, reach out and connect with Chantal. And then I already mentioned all the creative help I get, and that's from Gracie Ruth Melendez. So hi, Gracie. I know Gracie is managing multiple priorities herself right now. So thank you for hopping on, Gracie. And I truly hope your family member's doing well, and know you're taking really good care of him. So thanks for doing that, Gracie. Much appreciated. All right. So tell us a little bit how you mix life and leadership, and your favorite new topic, which is helping people with the science of love, right?
Yes, I could talk about that forever and for hours. And the one thing you just said before I dive into that is where, Gracie is like multitasking and doing different things, and seems to, I'm wondering if it's something that COVID propelled a lot of people, that we wanted to do certain things. Because for me, in my case, I mean, my side project that I'll explain to you in a second kind of birthed through COVID.
Right.
With all this like free time, I used to travel every other week, be on a plane, and just so having all this time behind the computer, I was like, okay, I need to dedicate something or kill some time, which I did. So I'm just wondering if that has been a cue for a lot of people, which probably is anyway. Sidebar.
No, I think it is. It's and I think it's called upon us to really examine what time is. And I always say to people, because again, I'm a process whiz guy, that the one non-recyclable thing we all have is time.
Yeah.
Once you've expelled it, you can never get it back. I mean, trash and plastic bottles, and I mean, those things, you still expel and use them, but you can actually recycle them to bring them back as something, either a different way of adding value, or a different product, or even a different process. But time is the one thing that you can recycle, and that's what people get a little confused about sometimes. So that's when I try and get people to realize, the first thing I do for fun is, if they don't really understand the power of time, is I get them and their teams to come up, challenge themselves to save 1 minute per day per person. Now that may not seem much, but if you've got hundreds of people, that's hundreds of minutes. And before you realize it, if you do that every day for 5 or 6 days a week, the math is astronomical.
You're right.
And that's what people don't always understand, is the power of using your time or not using your time.
Agreed.
That's a choice.
Agreed. Yeah, and I love that. That's like, I had never heard that. You're giving me a lot of good nuggets for a short time that we've been talking. Time is not recyclable. I love that. That's key. And you're right. And I love what Melissa just said is,
hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa. She was saying, to be better focused on the important things. And that's definitely something I've learned. And from my close entourage, when we have these conversations, is just what really matters now going forward after all of this. Right. And the other thing is that I've come to realize that we were so programmed, especially the older generation, that this was life and this was what you were kind of like given, and deal with it. And I love to say, like, when I was younger, I came from that little small town, white picket fence, little suburb, but I always felt there was more out there. I was very, very curious, and I never felt that I fit into that mold.
Right.
So, and what I've come to understand today is that it's okay. You can do different things at the same time and be in a sense of purpose or leadership in different scenarios and doing with different jobs. Right. So yes.
Absolutely. I agree. And I have actually many stories from, being in the trenches with lots of different people and lots of different genres of people and lots of different levels, as it were, in terms of organizations. And I've never forgotten, there was this one guy that everybody was really shy of even talking to, because he was always grumpy and in a bad mood. And but what was really interesting is that I started to spend some time with him, and what I realized is that he was really overlooked because of this facade that he put up, this grumpiness, not willing to really talk. So I used to go out of my way, much to his annoyance, and go see him every day. I used to say, hey, and after a while, I got to the point where I could tell he was a little bit more relaxed. And I just said to him, hey, what do you do when you're not at work? And he said, why do you want to know? Very reactionary. And I said, I'm just curious. I just sense that, there's something more about you. And he said, do you really want to know? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I coach Little League through the church. And I said, really? I said, that is amazing. Anyway, cut a long story short, he had segmented between being a worker, being a task-based, time-based worker. He completely segmented that from being a junior or mini junior league coach in a church where he felt super comfortable. So in the church, he was a super well-defined, well-respected leader. And then when he came to work, doing his functional task-based stuff, he left it all at the door.
Wow.
It was such a transformation. Anyway.
That always fascinates me. I don't have that personality. I'm, what you see is what you get 24/7. I might be more quiet at sometimes, but I do feel that it's a common theme with a lot of people. They feel they need to be certain things at certain times. And listen, some personalities are just like that. They're more introverted, and this is where they feel comfortable. But being in sales, because that's what I've been doing most of my life. The one thing I understood very, very quickly, and that's kind of what I feel differentiated me in my industry, is when you do have an interest towards someone and ask the right questions, you'd be amazed. And like you did with that gentleman,
yeah,
he was like, what? You want to know about me? Right. And it's amazing what you can find out, discover, or, especially if you're in sales, what people will vomit about their lives.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you're taking the time to listen.
Yeah, and what was amazing, if I could, so the full circle with him is this whole routine went on for about 4 months, and I was then given the opportunity to lead a pretty major improvement process or improve all of their processes in his area. And I said, hey, do you want to help? And he said, no way, I'm not. So after a while, I wore him down. And what was really interesting is he became such a key part of that team. He brought his church leadership skills to work for once in a while. And what was even more amazing is at the end of the whole thing, when it was all done, I put together a process where the team were going to actually present their results. And a lot of them were all introverts, like I am by natural behavior. So I understood where they were coming from. Yeah. And what's amazing is this guy, on the day of the presentation, he came to work in a shirt and tie. And it just floored everybody.
I can imagine.
Like he walked into the meeting room and everyone said, who the heck is this? I mean, he was all cleaned up. And he opened the meeting, and in the first 5 seconds, he sold the solution. It was unbelievable because nobody expected him to talk about doing the unexpected to get impact. Nobody expected him to show up, turn up, be present, and more importantly, he opened the meeting. As I said, he sold the solution in the first 5 seconds. It was amazing.
I love hearing those stories. I love that. That's great, especially when you don't expect it. It's always a nice surprise.
Oh, everyone was like, when you do one of those jaw drop moments.
Oh, that's awesome. So we kind of derailed on that. that's
leadership, right?
Exactly. But I did want to make sure that I asked your other question, how I kind of got leaded to my number 2 passion about after wine, and it's all about love and communication. When we talk about leadership skills, one of the skills that I've come to understand that is key is communication, and this is one of the things that I focus a lot in my in my teachings. And communication in relationship, when I see relationship, is not just in love relationship.
Right.
It's communication with, work, co-workers, with family members, with friends.
Right.
And I remember at a very young age, when I was just this rebel salesperson going and doing my thing and whatever, I had a lot of attitude. And I remember going in to get some stuff that I needed for a client. And we had an assistant that would just help us prepare everything. And she hadn't prepared it. And I lost my mind on her. And in my evaluation, a couple months after, my boss had said, Chantal, this is a problem. Like, you can't lose your marbles on somebody because you're not getting it the way you want when you want it, or treat somebody. And it always stayed with me, and that's when I said, okay, it's time to focus on the solution versus the problem in any given situation. So when you know that there's a problem, it's like, okay, the problem is there. Doesn't matter if we can bitch, complain, like do whatever we want, but let's find the solution. How can I help you find the solution, even though you didn't deliver or didn't do this or didn't do that? So super helpful lesson that I learned at a very young age that I actually practice in every single area of my life today in any given relationship. And what I've come to understand, even in big companies and even in relationship at home, is that we were never taught how to communicate. We don't know how. We struggle with it. We love to assume that people should think or do certain things for us because we think that that's the way, we would do it. And it doesn't happen that way.
I've been in one of those situations exactly this week. In fact, I spent some time spinning negatively inside of myself, and I realized that was not very compassionate, and I probably said some things that I shouldn't have said. And perfect timing. I hope that person's not calling you and saying, "Oh, this is bullshit, Bruce."
Talk about bad timing. I put it off my phone, but I can never figure out how to take the volume out of the computer, so I apologize.
Right. No, it's all right. Anyway, back to so I always say, and I like to play with words. The people that know me know that I love to play with syncopating words. So I always say that communication should be spelt with a K, because a lot of people say that, cash is king. Well, communication, if it was spelt with a K, would ring more true, because communication is king. It's absolutely it. And every time that I get off the rails, don't do my best behavior around the communication thing, it will always make people not love me very much at all, number one.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
Number two, it creates bigger leadership challenges than you should already have, for sure. Yes. And it's a great life recycler that when I look back at all the major mistakes I've made, it's been around lack of or ill preparation of communication, and also not being in that moment where you adapt your communication style. Like, it's almost like you've learned your script and wow, I'm going to hustle and deliver it. And you miss all the signs that this isn't working, Bruce.
Yeah, I agree.
You drive on through with your script, and then you think, oh, well, what didn't they understand? It's like, well, it wasn't they, it was thy. What didn't I understand to make them feel better about the communication I was giving? So,
exactly. And I remember, I don't know if you've ever read the book called The 4 Agreements by Miguel. So, you did?
Yeah, it's significant. Yeah,
it's so significant, and I don't understand why that's not even read and taught in school.
Right, it should be a high school curriculum book for sure.
Exactly. So, Bruce, my ultimate goal eventually, because I got, I have so many projects, but the one thing that I want to do because I've created my business, Raise Your Love Signal, which is basically a love coach, helping people. Oh my God, I apologize. This is the guy trying to deliver my food that I ordered.
Okay.
Can you take it? Oh my God.
Go for it. All right, so we'll ask Chantal in a minute what she's having for food. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so as you all know that have been on lives with me before, you never know what's going to happen live. So it's
oh my God. And I asked to have it delivered like at 8:15 so I wouldn't interrupt, and obviously that wasn't the case, so I apologize.
Hey, great example of communication not working the way we thought it was going to do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I called the guy up and said, "Why don't you catch her off guard and see how she deals with it?"
How did I do?
Good, because I kept talking irrespective of what you were doing. So.
Oh, Kenneth, don't worry. I'm a great cook. It's just tonight I was back to back, and I'm hosting a friend that's visiting from Vancouver. So I was like,
oh wow,
I don't have. So I'm like, so yes, I can't cook, Kenneth. And we're having Middle Eastern food, Melissa.
Awesome, yummy. Bringing all your heritage out, right?
I'm a big foodie, so working in the wine business, we love our food and we love our wine.
Absolutely.
So I apologize for that.
Bride and groom, right? Almost. Wine. I like wine and cheese. I'm not a big wine drinker, but when I do like wine, I love it with good. I only like block cheese. I'm one of those weird people. I don't like cheese that's sliced. I like to be able to chop it up myself so I can make it thick, thin, and sometimes I'm really rough with it because I'll break it up with my fingers, which is even better when you just break a chunk of cheese off of a block and have a glass of wine with it and some crackers.
Eat with your hands, especially.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because my mom used to tell me, "Hey, Bruce, hands were invented before forks." So
Very, very true, and I agree. There's something about, I don't know, makes food more enjoyable. I love eating with hands.
Right, it's that connection with it's almost like the texture of the food with your hands. It creates a better bonding and a better meaningful way of
Absolutely, I agree.
All right, so where were we? I think we should have added the word "lost" to the L.
I actually remember. I tend to lose my train of thought sometimes, but I'm focused on what I wanted to share with you. So in my in my love coaching practice, the bigger picture, when I started doing the research, because I was a single lady for 20 some years, almost 20 years, struggling in non-emotional available men, and I went through so much to try to understand why I just couldn't attract and get the love that I was looking for. And the one thing that saved me is I've always been very, very curious about self-development and personal development and just always working on myself. So through these 20 years, I learned so much, and there's not much I didn't read, I didn't do, I didn't experience, I didn't go hear, a speaker or a conference. And so love, dating, and relationships was always a passion of mine, even from my early 20s. And, when I hit my 40s, I had this urge of like, how can I give back to community right now? Because I was still single. I didn't own anything. And I was just me, myself, and I was like, this can't be it. There needs to be more. And I was always very fortunate and lucky because I always had great people to surround me, great people to help me. I call them like my guides and my angels to kind of like help me navigate through this thing called life and love. So, when COVID happened, I asked myself one morning out of the blue, what is love anyways?
Right.
And I was like, wow, I can't really figure out the definition here. And I like to think I'm a pretty evolved person. I've done a lot of personal development. What does the average person think? And this is what triggered this whole project, was I came to realize how we were never taught or educated about love, and especially not being in relationships. And the bigger picture I have, and because we were talking about how, that book of 4 agreements should be taught in school, I believe that I'd love for eventually to build a curriculum or create a curriculum that would be taught to kids at school as young as 10 about those social skills, communication, emotional intelligence, learning to understand that you as a human being are very unique, and what is in your thought process and how you were raised is not anybody else's life. Like, we're very, very unique human beings. So imagine if you had that awareness, or were prepared, how you would walk through becoming an adult, when you go through the motion of dealing with different relationships. And as I say, I focus on love, but I believe that everything I teach you can apply in every given relationship that you deal with, whether that's work or with friends and family. So, you know, everything can be solved with love. And we as human beings, I've come to realize we're all very different, but we're all so the same. And we all want a few same things. One of them is love. Two is being acknowledged and seen, right? We all want that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I always say to people, no matter where on the planet I meet them, usually we're more alike than we are disalike. And it's funny because a lot of people focus on the more disalike instead of being in the moment and focusing on the more alike. And I think if more people would just spend a few more minutes focusing on how are we more alike than disalike, then a lot of this, you know, fragileness around differences and diversity and inclusion, I think a lot of it would just melt away, because, you know, we'd be just focusing on the things that are common to us and comfortable to us, and have a good time around what's common to you and not worry about what's different between us. So
agreed.
Yeah. So I'm not a philosopher, but that's my philosophy anyway.
Well, we live in I find we're very self-centered on what we want.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've come to realize, it's like, I want. And there's always two people in any given relationship. So it's like, how do you almost say come of service for the other person in front of you? But it's not a one-way street. It's not like I give this, you give this. It has to be a 50-50 split. I will pay attention to what you are asking me, or sharing how you feel when I say this, or don't do that. Or, you know, I love it because I have a client, it's the second time that she does this with me, is I use the word and she says, can you please not use this word because it makes me feel like, because of something that triggers her with something else. And I was like, I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to tell me this. And it avoids triggers, situations, and especially me not understanding. I wouldn't have known if she wouldn't have taken the time to share that.
Right. Well, it's interesting because one of my unique skills is dealing with cross-functional or multifunctional teams. And when usually in the first or second time that I work with them, I always get a few things I call, let's get some of the elephants in the room out of the way.
Like that, yes.
And one of them is always, okay, so we all know that everybody's favorite radio station is WIIFM. So what does it mean? It means what's in it for me. So the WIIFM, if you're going to work collaboratively and cross-functionally, you know, you got to turn the volume down on the radio for a while. So that's kind of one of the, and the other one I always, you know, the elephant in the room, as I always say, you know, if it's not spoken or not written and posted on the wall, it didn't happen. So you couldn't mumble and curse and be, you know, whatever you like. You can sit in the corner and say this, this, and this. But if you don't say it out loud and trust the team to listen, or if you don't want to say it, you can write it and post it on the wall. That's okay. So if it's not on the wall, or if it wasn't said, it didn't happen. And I find that if you do those two things early on, it kind of defuels that whole mystery around, okay, how are we going to operate? How are we not going to operate? You know, what are the ground rules? What aren't the ground rules? And and I wish I'd applied that to more relationships in my life. So that would be a reflection today, which is
it's never too late.
Now you got the dinger on me. What was
honestly, I've resigned myself to the situation. I'm just like
Oh my! This is one of the most eventful lives I've had since my 100th was pretty eventful because I was in an Uber car. I was late getting to the place, and then when I got there, I wasn't sure I was in the right place. And Brian Shulman and some of the other people, Gracie and Nancy and Tim, they were on the live with me, and they said, "Hey, why don't we call the police and tell the police there's a strange guy doing a live in your backyard?" They didn't call the police, but I mean, the whole live just fell apart at that point.
Oh my God. Okay, well, I don't take the one for like that. That takes the one for the money for sure, not me.
I know,
but you will just definitely remember ours.
For sure. All right, so I guess calming things down, and let's get back to a little. So tell people a little bit more about, you know, what's upcoming for you. What's the best way for people to reach out to you? I mean, give us some insights into what's going to happen in your life. And
oh, that's a good question. What's going to happen in my life? So the best way to reach me, I mean, other than being in this beautiful wine company by day and this passion by night, being a love coach. And I love to say that I'm a teacher that coaches. I feel that everything that I've learned over the last 20 years, I've crashed it into a course. I love to say it's almost like an MBA of love. Where
yeah, it should be LMBA. How about that?
Oh, LMBA, you're good.
I like that. Hey, you can copyright that quick. So.
I know. It's lovely. I'm going to write it down.
Or L-MBA. I love it. So
yes. So it's basically everything from A to Z. It's not the ABCs. It's a program I've built that to help men and women not only learn how to attract the right partner, but build their vision of their relationship. Because everything, when we're looking for love, as we just discussed, we often make it about what I want. We don't think about what we need to survive and grow and evolve and build a relationship together. And that was like, wow, really eye-opening for me. So I do a lot of work with that, and I do everything in between, teaching how to be in actual relationship, because it's one thing learning to attract the right person, finding the right person, but how the hell do you make sure that you're going to survive in a relationship? So that's a huge part and I love this part because I love to say I'm a student of my own teachings. I've recently, as I said, it's 20 years single, Bruce. When I finally met my magical unicorn, I realized that even though our story was very easy, a relationship isn't. It's a lot of work. It's a full-time job. You need to get up and perform every single day, communicate. Don't take anything for granted, because we do that with people that are closest to us, because you will lose the job. You will lose the relationship. So I've been able to apply everything I've learned, and I was like, wow, I can't even imagine not learning all this stuff before, how I wouldn't be able to put myself up for success in the long run. And then, I think that people need to really understand where they come from to understand why they act or react in the relationship. So I do a lot of like in between, where it's like learning, how you were raised, because our first experience with love is from our parents. So whether they were good or not, that's the first experience that you have, and it's often what's in your subconscious mind going into love when you grow into adulthood. So creating that awareness is something I'm very passionate about. So this is my program. I do this. They can find me on Instagram. I have my page, Chantal.𝒉𝒕, my website, Raise Your Love Signal, because I'm all about helping us raise our love signal together. And I would say I do weekly lives on my platform. I've also recently just been added as a guest speaker on this beautiful platform. If people are interested in self-development, it's called XXO Connect.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
You've exactly. Small world.
Yeah.
One of my clients introduced me, where we connected us to Bruce. So this is a beautiful platform. I believe in what they're doing because it's basically all about self-development. You pay a monthly membership and have access to all these like where we're doing speakers or experts on different areas of life, whether it's a business coach, love coach, sex coach, like you name it, you can find it on there.
Yeah, I know some of the room proctors. One is Claudia Wyatt is a room proctor.
Yes.
Raquel Boris is another one, I believe, from time to time. And,
yes. So that's I'm a weekly guest now every Tuesday on that platform, and I'm hoping that people will leverage and utilize the advantage. I mean, that's worth like 15 grand. Like if I calculate everything I spent to learn or do self-development in the last 15, 20 years,
yeah,
it's a lot of money. Well worth spent, but you can get it. That's the good thing about social media or whatever. You can just get everything on a one-stop shop now today. It's great.
Well, I am so proud of you, because my other fast tip that I tend to beat a drum on, and people don't always understand why I beat the drum, is that I find that if you can't be the product to your own process, then number one, shame on you. And number two, you haven't really earned the right to be able to coach and guide people through that same product or process if you're not the product of the product. So I don't know about you, but I find that probably is the one thing that bugs me more than anything else, particularly when people use the word, well, I'm an expert in this. And then you say, well, okay, well, how do you deploy that? Oh, well, I don't quite do it like this. It's like, hang on. You're saying you're doing this, but you're actually doing that. So
yes.
This and that are completely different. So yeah, be the product to your own process, and be the outcome of what you want the process to be, if you're going to guide others towards that same outcome. So
yeah, and I would even add to that is like, be open to always seeing things from a beginner's perspective, because it's really easy to use your, oh yeah, I know, I'm an expert, or I've been doing this for years, or whatever. What I've learned for myself is humility, of never being afraid to admit that I'm wrong, or paying attention. If somebody is taking the time to tell me something and that I either did wrong or spoken the wrong, like whatever, I'm like, I will sit down and question myself. Oh, okay. What can I learn from this? What do I need to change, or maybe I can modify? And it's funny because I was in a conference a couple of weeks ago. We randomly met. Like, this was that's a whole other conversation. But when I sat down, she's a coach, a manifestation coach. So we speak a lot of the same language. So a lot of the stuff she was saying, I was like, I know. And at one point, she said, do you know the two words that keep us from manifesting our dreams and the life that we want and whatever? So obviously, right away, I can't. But the second word I couldn't click, and she said, I know. Bruce, I was like, oh my God, I was just that person. I was just saying, I know. And she asked, I want you to start looking at everything tonight from beginner's eyes. And it really stayed with me, because that for me is eating your piece of humble pie. It doesn't matter all the experience you've gotten, whatever. There's always a new lesson to learn,
right?
Or to say. So it's like, let go of the ego thing.
Last night. I think you must have been reading my text last night. That didn't end too well, but oh well.
Oh, but ego will never get you anywhere at the end of the day. And it's like, is it really worth it? That's often what I ask myself. Okay, I want to argue, or I want to have it my way. And then I'm like, it's your ego stepping into the play. Is it really worth it? Is it like, so in leadership, I find that that's a huge quality that as leaders we should be taught, or
shown that ego is not a value component.
No, it isn't. It isn't a lot. So the humility of being able to admit or step a step down to kind of like, for me, has been, it's a lifesaver, right? It's
great way to end our vibrant conversation. We could go on forever. I now know you have hot food waiting. So. And you have probably a very hungry guest.
Well, my guest is not here yet because I told her that we do like hot. So I'll have hot food without her. But it was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you for the opportunity, and so happy to finally connect with the famous blue.
Welcome. Yeah, you're the gal in the blue. Is it a jacket or a dress?
Sorry,
is it a jacket or a dress? I can't tell.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a shirt.
Oh, blue shirt. All right. Well, good. At least you got the shirt. All right. So yeah, thanks everyone for being on live. All the great comments. I know there's questions here that we will go back and answer in the replay. And if you could hang on just for a minute, Chantal, I'll let you know how I'm going to get you everything. So good night, everybody, and wonderful Wednesday morning if you are seeing this from the Pacific Rim. So take care, everybody.
Good night.